mean, we had some hot topics this week, and one of the hot topics, man, we seen like we had the riots. Oh yeah, we had the George Floyd, we had Breonna Taylor, and we just had this young brother just got killed by the police in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania this weekend. And Rod, I'm gonna ask you this first time. What are your thoughts on that shooting, and how do you feel? Because you are former. If people that just tuned in for the first time, Rodney's former sergeant for NYPD in New York, here in New York City, and you have a world of experience in these kind of events and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to tell you that Walter Wallace shooting was not in comparison like Eric Gardner, George Floyd, Jacob Blake. Mm-hmm. This is different circumstances. I don't know if people notice it. It's not being covered in the media as much, and the reason why is because of the circumstances. If you watch that video, it's very unfortunate what happened to Mr. Wallace. The police at some point they were retreating. Mr. Wallace did have a knife, and I think he had a history of some sort of mental illnesses as well. The thing is, a knife is considered a deadly weapon, and the way the police are trained, they are allowed to use deadly physical force when they're being faced with deadly physical force. So the only thing that I kind of noticed, and like I said, try to understand, because it's difficult being in that situation because you got to make a decision in like seconds. The only thing I noticed was excessive is he was shot too many times. But the thing is, to shoot him under the eyes of the police department, that's justification. His family was there. They couldn't calm him down, whatever. Like I said, I don't see Jacob Blake's situation, Eric Gardner's situation, and George Floyd's situation as the same, because I think that those guys were killed. They were murdered. Well, Mr. Blake didn't die, but he was shot 9 times. It was excessive.
Rodney, let me ask you a question. Is it fair? Because I think what we do as civilians a lot of times, and this is obviously what I always find in my mind saying, is it always necessary to use deadly force? And I know we always like, you could have shot the person in the leg, something like that. When you're in the moment, though, is that really unrealistic to ask someone to in those type of situations to just take that moment to say, I'm going to just decide to use hold back, restraint, have restraint from deadly force, something like that in the moment? Does the moment change it with all the training and everything? Is that unfair for us to ask that question?
The thing is, the police department does not train officers to shoot people in the leg. They do not train them to shoot them in the arm. They do not train them to shoot. They train them to shoot center mass, because basically, go ahead.
No, because people don't understand. People that like me and Rob, we like to go shooting. We avid shooters. It's so hard to shoot someone in your arm or leg. Those things move.
Because you're correct. They move, and if you miss, you can hit an innocent bystander. Now we got another problem. So the thing is, they train officers to shoot center mass, because all your vital organs is in your chest. So the bottom line is, if I shoot you center mass, most likely I'm going to stop the threat. You know what I mean? Because everything is in the center of your body. That's vital. You know what I mean? That's a big misconception that people think. They think that officers are like marksmen, and that's not true. That's not true at all. I think in NYPD, I think when I was on the job, we went to the range twice a year to practice shooting. Twice a year.
You're right.
That's not enough.
Yeah, I go to the range I go to the shooting range more than most cops. And then when you go you're comparing it, shooting, like, damn, bro, you
probably shoot better than most cops too.
I do.
Yeah.
But it's sad. Let me ask you another question, Rod. So, where was? I mean, you're not Philadelphia Police. Where were the tasers? Do you know if Philadelphia Police Department has tasers or anything like that? Or?
I'm under the impression that Philadelphia police officers do not carry tasers. I don't think they were issued tasers. They should be. You know what I'm saying? Because that's non-lethal. You know what I mean? When you're not equipped with a taser, you have to go from basically 0 to 100 by using your gun right away. That's your next step. There's no non-lethal thing unless they have mace or something. But the thing is, you can't meet mace with a deadly weapon. You know what I mean? You're taking a chance, because by the time that mace kicks in, that person could have covered a lot of ground and gotten closer to you to stab you.
Gotcha. So that's what it's good that people get educated and understand how it's going to go. If people don't understand, justify what the police department says is shooting, I think, and I don't think any of these things are going to happen to these officers when that shooting.
I kind of feel that it's going to go as a justified shooting. I really do, because what they're going to do is, like I said, you watch the video, like the cops were running. They would at some point they were retreating until they got to the middle of the street, and he still came towards them, and then they fired. Like I said, I thought too many shots were probably fired, but I don't think those officers are going to get in trouble. I really don't. I don't think they're the same thing.
And like Kelvin said, it's hard being black because you call the 911 and this can happen. The mother called 911.
Yeah, now she has to live with that. Yeah, she has to live with that for the rest of the life.
Well, let me ask you this question. Rodney, have you ever seen a situation where, and I know it's tough because you are law enforcement, even retired. I know I would assume if you are, you once a cop, always a cop, I would assume.
No, I don't think that. I don't think that way.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. Yeah, so with that said, being more of a civilian now, have you ever looked at a situation and said, in your mind, I wouldn't ask you to identify the situation, but have you ever looked at one of these situations, that one of these national shootings, unarmed, have you ever said, if that guy was white, he would be alive today?
Absolutely. I said that. Me and D have said this hundreds of times. I mean, it's all over social media. You can see where this. I seen a video on social media where the guy beat up two cops, a male and a female, took their baton, beat them with it, and then stole the RMP, and nobody fired one shot. Where they were justified in shooting, and he didn't shoot. The thing is this: the cops do react differently in the black community than they do the white. That's a fact. I'm never going to deny that.
Right. Wow.
And then, the sad thing, the mother did call for the ambulance and said her son had mental illness. But I don't know if they have a team on the police department in Philadelphia for under mental illness. I don't even know if they have it in any other state. I know they do in Europe. They have a whole mental illness unit to come out and make sure that and assess the situation and stuff like that.
In New York City, basically, depending on the circumstances, in that circumstances, there's no time. This is a guy with a knife, and he's out of control. His family can't control him or whatever. If he was barricaded or he was in a house and refusing to come out, that's a different circumstances, because then they could call ESU and they would basically go in there, subdue him, and then bring him on out. They have things like that. They got like the shield. They had like water cannons back in the days where they could hit them with water. They had things where basically they could basically bum rush you with the shield and just pin you up against the wall and get you on the ground and then cuff you up or whatever. But in that situation, there's no time for that. There's no time for that.